Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 294 to 296 based on novel. So let's start. How did Mu Ping die? His mother still hadn't come back to her senses, and she was still sad about the death of Aunt Pinga, so she didn't hear what Qin Mu had said. Exactly what had happened during the time Mu Ping had brought Qin Mu out from Yudu and into the Great Ruins, Qin Mu had no idea at all. Granny Sai and the rest also didn't know, and they only knew that the woman had already passed away when she sent Qin Mu to the riverside. She was relying on her remaining willpower to send Qin Mu to a safe place. When Qin Mu met her again in Secret Waters Pass, she had turned into a female corpse under the water. Only when she heard Qin Mu telling her that he had grown up and that he was well, only then did her perseverance vanish. She sunk to the bottom of the river, as she no longer had any worries. From Yudu to the Great Ruins, Qin Mu was merely a 2 to 3 months old baby, and he didn't have any memory. Even though this journey wasn't too far, there must have been fights that no one knew, and there must be people who had tried to seize or kill Qin Mu in places Earth Count couldn't see. It was a pity Mu Ping could no longer describe what she had encountered back then. Mother, I will personally find Aunt Pinga's soul, and no matter where her soul is, I will invite her back. Qin Mu revealed a smile and consoled his mother. I have some abilities now, and I know a lot of people. Even if Aunt Pinga's soul has dispersed, even if her soul is being suppressed, I can definitely save her. Mother, Big Brother is also here, he wants to meet you very much. Big Brother? Princess Consort Jin was puzzled, and she looked at Qin Mu with worry. Qin Mu said with a smile, it's Big Brother. When we were born, it was Big Brother protecting Mother in Yudu. Let me call him out. Qin Mu's body suddenly stopped moving, and he stood there without moving. Feng Qing. Princess Consort Jin became worried, and she called out several times. Feng Qing. What happened to you? In Qin Word land, the big-headed baby crossed his arms in front of his chest, and his head turned to one side while his chubby legs overlapped each other. I'm not going. Mother is scared of me. Qin Mu circled to his face and said with a smile, as the older brother, you are still throwing a tantrum like a little child. Stop messing around. Haven't you wanted to see Mother since a long time ago? This is a rare chance. I won't go. That big-headed baby turned his head to the other side. Mother likes you more, she doesn't like me. I'm picked up, and you are her own. I'm not going. Crimson Emperor's consciousness said, that fat kid, if you don't want to go you don't have to go, but can you first get down from my body? You have been sitting on me long enough. He was under the big baby's asterisk, and he couldn't move with his face planted in the ground. Not far away, the clone of Heaven Duke was hidden behind the mountains of Qin Word land. He popped his head out to take a look. Qin Mu said with a smile, we are one. So why are my mothers and you are picked up? Stop messing around, go meet Mother, she's worried sick. If you don't want to go, I'll be going. That big-headed baby hurriedly got up and rushed out of the sky. Fine. The consciousness of Crimson Emperor saw that he left, so he hurriedly got up. He patted the dust from his body. There was actually no dust, but he was used to it. On the other side, the clone of Heaven Duke hurriedly ran over, and he took a glance at Qin Mu. You are done for, you are done for. You have released the great Devil King out, now you can't reclaim your corporeal body. You are finished. Qin Mu said with a smile, Heaven Duke, that's my older brother, we are one. The white-bearded old man stared with his eyes wide open. Do you know that big-headed baby has learned bad? Who has he learned from? None other than you. After he goes out, he will definitely seal you inside and trap all of us here. Qin Mu's expression changed slightly. My brother won't do that. Outside, Princess Consort Jin was feeling uneasy. Suddenly, Qin Mu let out a shaky breath, and she saw her son's body popping and expanding. Qin Mu grew taller and taller. However, his age was regressing, and he slowly became a white and plump boy in front of her. Qin Mu's clothes were treasures made by Yu Jiaoqing, which could become bigger as the body become bigger. However, when worn on this big fatty, they made him look chubby, and it was truly a funny sight. Princess Consort Jin had a blank look, as she saw her son's transformation in a daze. She couldn't come back to her senses. Mother, please wait a moment. The fat boy took down the 2 Daotai sacks, excited as he rummaged through them. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he took out a willow leaf to paste it on his head. He beamed and said, "Bad brother, now you can't come out." In Qin Word land, Chinmu was currently trying to fly out of this heaven and earth to seize back his body. Suddenly, the vein lines of the willow leaf appeared in the sky, and the rays around the Buddha shone brightly. His aura connected with the willow leaf and sealed the heaven and earth. Qin Mu was in a daze. Brother. You are done for. The white-haired elder said angrily, "You have guided him astray, you are done for, and we are done for." Qin Mu blinked his eyes, and his eyes were filled with helplessness. Crimson Emperor grunted and said, "I feel this is better, at least this kid won't start beating us for no reason." Mother. I'm back. That big-headed baby clapped his chubby hands at Princess Consort Jin and asked for a hug. However, he realized he was too huge and couldn't hug his mother, so he hurriedly shrunk his size. Princess Consort Jin carried this baby that was only 2 to 3 months old, and this baby was the age when she had put the jade pendant around Qin Mu's neck. However, everything looked so preposterous. She revealed a warm look on her face, and she felt that this was a blessing from heaven for allowing her to see her son when he was young again. Right at this moment, Left Assistant Minister, who had gone to catch chickens and frogs, came back, and they looked at the baby in Princess Consort Jin's arms. The big-headed baby saw them carrying fish and frogs, and he became excited. He jumped down from his mother's embrace, and his arms and legs moved in unison as he crawled quickly towards them. Yummy! The baby grew larger and larger before grabbing Left Assistant Minister up. With his mouth open as huge as the sky, he was prepared to send Left Assistant Minister along with the chickens and frogs into his mouth. Village women came back from outside with fruits and vegetables. They even caught a hen dragon, and they all looked at this sight in a daze. Cluck! The hen dragon fainted. Just as Left Assistant Minister was about to be eaten, Princess Consort Jin's gentle voice rang out. Fengqing, no. The big-headed baby hesitated for a moment, and he looked at Left Assistant Minister, who was already dumb as a wood chicken reluctantly. We haven't met for over 20 years, Uncle has grown to be quite sturdy, you must definitely be very chewy. Aunt Juana, hug hug. He pounced into the embrace of a village woman. Aunt Juana hugged him, and her body was trembling. The big-headed baby licked Aunt Juana's face, and he gave a vicious gaze. Aunt Juana didn't dare to move, and at this moment, the big-headed baby felt his body was light as he got carried by Princess Consort Jin. Qin Fengqing blinked his eyes cunningly, and he stuck his thumb in his mouth. He swung his short arms and legs around. Princess Consort Jin gave him a look of pity, and she kissed him on his head. She smiled at everyone who didn't dare to move. Go prepare some dishes, it's a happy occasion that we, mother and son, are reunited. Even though everyone there was a god, they were still fearful of this little overlord of Yudu. They went to cook in trepidation. Princess Consort Jin teased the baby in her arms, and they were full of smiles. Not long later, the dishes were ready, but everyone didn't dare to sit and eat. They all stood and trembled at the side. The big-headed baby took a glance, and everyone hurriedly sat down. The baby gave a smile again. Princess Consort Qin fed her son, and Qin Fengqing ate obediently. He was very happy. There's no taste of soul, it's not too tasty, but whatever mother feeds me is delicious. As they ate this meal, Princess Consort Qin hugged him and hummed a nursery rhyme to coax him to sleep. This big-headed baby giggled and flailed his arms and legs around. He finally slept after some time passed. Princess Consort Qin gently touched her son's face, and she was entranced. She hesitated over and over again, but she still placed her fingers on the willow leaf on his third eye. Right at this moment, the baby in her arms opened his jet-black eyes and looked at her. "Mother, don't take it off." That baby opened his eyes and gave off a pleading expression. He pouted and said with a sobbing tone in his voice, "Don't take it off." Fengqing misses mother, "Mother, don't take it off please." Princess Consort Qin rocked her body and hummed a nursery rhyme. "Fengqing is mother's good baby. Don't throw a tantrum, go to sleep." "Mother, don't take it off." Princess Consort Qin took down the willow leaf, and that baby closed his eyes. Tears streaked down from the corners of his 3 eyes, and he turned his head around to say softly, "You don't like Fengqing, you only like younger brother." Princess Consort Qin kissed him and said, "Mother loves you. I just don't want you to create more trouble. I hope you can live properly. You can't control yourself, but your brother can control himself. Mother just wishes both of you can live on." She hugged her baby and placed him on a small bed. Qin Fengqing sighed and returned back to Qin Word land in loneliness. His body gradually grew up, and after a moment, Qinmu opened his eyes and got up from the bed. He knelt down in front of Princess Consort Qin's knees and placed his head gently on her knees. The mother and son didn't speak a word. 2 days later, Princess Consort Qin hurried and said, "Fengqing, you should go, this isn't a place you should stay long." Qinmu got up and revealed a smile. "Mother, I will be back. The next time I come back, I will bring mother away from here to enjoy life outside." Princess Consort Qin sent him to the village entrance. Qinmu hesitated for a moment before saying softly, "I've seen father, he is still alive." Princess Consort Qin's body trembled, and she shook her head. "You don't have to lie to me, with such heavy injuries, it's impossible for him to be still alive. Father is really still alive." Qinmu said with a firm tone and said solemnly, "I've seen him, he is right here in Yudu, he is still in that treasured ship that was carrying us. He is always looking for mother. He has turned into a tree man, and because of Saturn's sovereign, he has sworn to Earth Count. He said if he sees me, he will have to tell Saturn's sovereign the location of Carefree Village. When I reunited with him, he didn't open his eyes to look at me. However, he is really still alive." Princess Consort Qin was stunned. "Mother, I want to know how I can go to Carefree Village." Qinmu hesitated for a moment. "I want to meet Founding Emperor." Princess Consort Qin was silent for a moment. "Don't go back." Qinmu was stunned, and he said loudly, "Why?" Princess Consort Qin shook her head. "Don't go back. I don't allow you to go back." Qinmu was stunned. "Mother, please stay." At the village entrance, he turned and knelt down on the ground. He kowtowed 3 times heavily before getting up to leave. Princess Consort Qin looked at him walking into the monument forest. Qinmu looked back, and he still saw her standing there. Yudu's Jade Lock Pass encampment. At this moment, thousands of soldiers and cavalry were arranged orderly. They had an austere aura, and they were all staring at the Hellfire Virtue monuments in the monument forest. After a moment, Qinmu walked out of the monument forest. Among the very powerful soldiers, Left Soul Guardian Mochimi sprinted over and stopped far away. He hugged his fist and greeted. Qin Mu stopped and returned his greeting. I didn't bring my mother out. I didn't trouble Left Guardian. Qin Fengqing, do you know what is outside the pass? Left Soul Guardian asked solemnly. Qin Mu shook his head. Left Soul Guardian said loudly, outside Jade Lock Pass, it is all your enemies, countless gods and devils, countless big shots of Yudu. Some of them are from the celestial heavens, they possess corporeal bodies, divine weapons, and remarkable abilities. Some are primordial spirits, that were on the numinous sky and Emperor's throne, when they were alive. They were omnipotent, and after they died, they were also overlords of their territories. Once you go out of this pass, it will be a bloodbath. Qin Mu bowed and said, many thanks for your guidance. Left Soul Guardian revealed a smile and said meaningfully, Earth Count takes care of you very well, and he also takes care of your mother very well. To repay his favor, do you know what you should do? Qin Mu said solemnly, justice is to be found everywhere, it doesn't bend to power, and it doesn't concern benefits. To not be afraid of death, and uphold justice, is the bravery of a gentleman. Left Soul Guardian said solemnly as he raised his hand, open the gates. The majestic gates of the incomparably thick Yudu, Jade Lock Pass, slowly creaked open. Righteous One Qin, please. Left Soul Guardian shouted, beat the drums. Blow the horns. Send the Righteous One off. Thud, thud, thud. The drumbeats were like thunder. Doo-oo, doo-oo. The bugle horns rang out loudly. Qin Mu walked out of the pass among the beating of the drums and blowing of the horns. Behind him, black monuments stood tall like forest and hellfire was everywhere. Outside Yudu Jade Lock Pass, a tattered flag rustled as it fluttered in the cold wind. This flag was too old and seemed to have been used in battle before. On it were traces of divine arts and burn marks left behind by flames. On the flag, there were even rust-like bloodstains. The one holding this flag was a four-armed devil god that was 300 yards tall. The four incomparably thick arms held onto the pole of the flag, and his gaze was sharp and firm. He stared relentlessly at the gate of Jade Lock Pass. Whoosh! The huge flag split apart from the fierce and cold winds. Long strips of cloth fluttered backward in the sinister wind. Where the strips of cloth floated by, majestic gods stood neatly in ranks. They wore tattered armor on their bodies and held broken god weapons and devil god weapons in their hands. They all stood quietly behind the huge flag. The number of gods was simply too much. They stretched all the way into the horizon. And in the center of the army, there was an imperial canopy with several huge holes. The canopy covered an area of dozens of miles, and under the canopy was a pole that was as thick as a pillar. Beside it was the throne formed from coiling dragon bones. The wind was too harsh. The gigantic existence sitting on the throne shook his scarlet-red cape to prevent it from getting blown away by the cold wind. His face was pale, and he coughed heavily a few times. After Red Deity got injured by Son of Yudu then, you still have yet to recover. A woman with the head of a snake and the body of a human slithered over to him, but she spoke with a manly voice. The expression of that Red Deity didn't look too good, and he said indifferently, Red Deity. I'm already dead. I don't deserve the title of Red Deity. This current Red Deity is Qi Xiaoyu, that girl. Just call me Yang Qianzhong. Lu Li smiled tenderly. During the end period of the High Emperor era, Red Deity fought with Qi Xiaoyu, it was honorable even in defeat. Even though Red Deity died, Qi Xiaoyu also had no choice but to surrender. Yang Qianzhong was very unhappy. Scram. Understood. Lu Li was full of smiles, and she walked over to another camp. That army of gods with boundless soldiers wasn't the full military power that had come this time. They were merely the army of gods under Yang Qianzhong. Yang Qianzhong was originally the red deity of the old celestial heavens. During the end of the High Emperor era, the old celestial heavens wanted to wipe out the High Emperor celestial heavens. Red deity Yang Qianzhong faced off Qi Xiaoyu, and even though both of these emperors' throne were incomparably powerful, Qi Xiaoyu was still a little more skilled, and she managed to kill Yang Qianzhong. However, Qi Xiaoyu was also severely injured because of this and got seized by the old celestial heavens. She was forced to surrender and become the new southern heaven red deity. This was the story that Lu Li had brought up earlier. Yang Qianzhong was originally red deity, and after he died, he landed in Yudu to be a ghost deity. However, he was far from the world of sensual pleasures. After becoming a ghost, he had lost all of his senses. Whatever he ate had no taste, and he couldn't smell the fragrance of the flowers. Even though he was riding roughshod over people, he still had to take orders from the celestial heavens, therefore, he was naturally unhappy. Lu Li reminding him of that made him even more unhappy. Lu Li came to the camp beside his, and she saw an incomparably gigantic god standing over there. His body was like boulders. She said with a smile, "Crown Prince Joshi, son of Mother Earth, how are your injuries recovering? Over the years, I have swallowed countless souls and have finally recovered." That boulder giant Yang Joshi grinned and said, "Today's battle, I will definitely take son of Yudu's head." The gods under him were all half-gods, and it was obvious he was a half-god overlord during the Dragon Han era. Lu Li said with a smile, "Crown Prince Joshi, we aren't trying to kill son of Yudu this time, we are just seizing his fate, and seizing his corporeal body." Yang Joshi snorted, and his voice boomed like thunder. "Lu Li, don't think I don't know what you are planning. Back then, when you invited all of the gods in Yudu to campaign against son of Yudu, you ended up losing our people, and even suffering heavy injuries. Later, you gathered our power to create the divine weapon called God Suppression Heavenly Web, and said you wanted to see son of Yudu for us to deal with him. However, after creating God Suppression Heavenly Web, you delayed making your move. Your ambition is high, and you are thinking of becoming another Earth Count." Lu Li nodded her head and agreed with everything he said. "I never got a chance in the world of the living, and God Suppression Heavenly Web might not be able to get rid of him." She came to another camp and said with a smile, "Goddess Xian Wuji." Goddess Wuji took a glance at her and said insipidly, "There's no need to talk anymore. Son of Yudu and I have a deep grudge, we can't coexist under the same heaven. However, Lu Li, you aren't a good person either. If it wasn't you who couldn't defeat son of Yudu, and called my son to help, would my son have been eaten by him?" Lu Li said righteously, "Son of Yudu's sins are overflowing, and he is the supreme evil in Yudu. As His Majesty's martial concubine, you are known for your methods of martial battle. Wiping out the celestial heavens until death puts an end. Lu Li is always respectful to you, so why would I purposely let His Highness send himself to death?" She came to another camp and bowed. "Great Sun Sovereign." That was the three souls primordial spirit of a natural-born sacred god. Ancient gods had no 7 spirits, they only had 3 souls. Great Sun Sovereign of the current celestial heavens was a strong practitioner of the High Emperor era. Meanwhile, this primordial spirit in Yudu was the real Great Sun Sovereign. Great Sun Sovereign was like a huge bird that stood on 3 legs. His feathers were smooth along his body and weren't messy at all. "Provincial Governor, don't worry, we won't let son of Yudu escape in this battle. Great Sun Sovereign's speed is unmatched in this world, you definitely can make him run out of places to escape to." Lu Li continued to walk forward and paid her respects to the big shots of Yudu. Some of the big shots even transformed their corporeal bodies into celestial palaces, while they sat on the emperor's thrones in the celestial palaces, looking awe-inspiring and impressive. These big shots were strong practitioners on Emperor's throne realm and numinous sky realm, that had died in the past million years. There were some half-gods that had died even earlier, and had died from old age before the cultivation of divine treasures and celestial palaces had even come out. However, their battle power was also astonishing high. Even though they had no realm, their cultivation was no weaker than the strong practitioners on Numinous Sky and Emperor's Throne realm. Lu Li paid her respects all the way down, and met 100 big shots before coming to her own camp. In this camp, there were only 100 Yudu devil gods left and a few thousand monsters. Attacking Fengdu the previous time, Elder Messenger of Death suddenly slipped away, and caused her to have to throw down her army to escape back to Yudu. The rest were mostly slaughtered. Zhu Huang, Xian Ming, and Han Lei came up. These 100 devil gods and thousands of monsters were the entire military power of the 4 great provincial governors. Xian Ming was full of worries, and he frowned. There were also so many strong practitioners the last time, didn't they all get slaughtered miserably by him? Could we seize him this time? Lu Li was full of confidence, and she smiled. It's different this time. Those big shots were all full of confidence the previous time, and they thought they could defeat him. Solo fights were more common, and no one really ganged up on him, so they all suffered a disadvantage. Son of Yudu fought an escape, so it made it easier for him to execute his moves. She couldn't resist smiling and said, "Now, those old things are more shameless. As long as we are stationed here and block Yudu Jade Lock Pass, he won't be able to escape. With so many strong practitioners on Numinous Sky and Emperor's Throne, his life is no longer in his hands." Furthermore, she looked towards the camp, the center of the camp. Numerous devil gods and monsters were guarding a huge divine weapon. The shape of that divine weapon was like a huge cauldron, and its walls were imprinted with all kinds of runes, forming images of earth, water, wind, fire, mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas. There were also images of half-gods, dragon-headed humans, phoenix-headed humans, tiger-headed humans, etc. On the walls inside of the cauldron were the sun, moon, and stars, while on the bottom of the cauldron were countless seals. Lu Li said with a smile, "This cauldron will be the treasure to refine him." When Earth Count reincarnated, he refined the slaughter cauldron. He killed countless ancient gods and half-gods back then, and managed to refine the strongest devil god weapon in Yudu. Yudu slaughter cauldron can trap him, but the most crucial thing is still this. She took out a squarish lid, and the lid was imprinted with all kinds of round heaven and square earth. In the round heaven was Xuanju and in the square earth was Yudu. As long as we take the chance, when Son of Yudu starts to fight them and absorb him into the Yudu slaughter cauldron, he will be helpless once we cover it with God suppression heavenly net. Right at this moment, the gates of Jade Lock Pass opened and sounds of horns blared out. It was followed by the beating of drums that reverberated in their chests. Countless gazes turned to look at the open gate, and they saw a god with 3 heads and 6 arms walking down calmly. Son of Yudu. Gods and devils from the camps gave off noisy chatters, and the austere aura that was pressing down on everyone earlier had now turned into fear that was spreading among the gods. Fear. Once, no one had paid any attention to Son of Yudu, but after that fierce battle 22 years ago, fighting from the horns of 9 bends to the battlefield behind them, way too many existences that were important had died. They got swallowed by Son of Yudu, and their souls were digested. Son of Yudu had erased countless powerful beings from this world completely. His viciousness made even the fiercest devil god not dare to mention his name even though he was exiled 22 years ago. Qin Mu walked step by step out of the city gate. Behind the thick and heavy gates of Jade Lock Pass slowly closed. Suddenly, his gaze looked into the camp, and he saw a god that looked like a tree man. Qin Mu was stunned and the door shut with a rumble. Air currently rushed out. "Brother, I seem to have seen Father," he said softly. "Father?" The big-headed baby beside his neck was still sulking, and he snorted. Father must like you more, right? If father sees me and then he sees you, he will definitely hug and kiss you, he won't kiss me. Father, you are so biased. Qin burst into laughter, and he looked at the god formation in front. It was boundless and without end. Only tattered flags and ships could still be seen in the sky. Big brother, that divine art that you call RRR, how do execute it? He asked with a smile. The big-headed baby crossed his arms in front of him and sneered. What RRR? Qin pondered for a moment and said, it should be SSS, like sucking in air to suck the souls and primordial spirits over, the divine art for swallowing. I saw tens of thousands of gods having only their shell left in one of Yudu's celestial palaces. Their primordial spirits must have been eaten by you. You meant that? The big baby said with a smile, you are so dumb, you can just suck in your breath. Qin was stunned, and he cried out, I can just suck in my breath. Have you never thought about the reason behind it? What paths do you use when you suck in a breath? What are the basic runes you use? The big-headed baby was in a daze. Qin sighed and said solemnly, Big brother, your qualities are simply too good. As a result, raising your hands and legs is equivalent to divine arts. I'm inferior to you, so I have to figure out and comprehend any divine art. Thus, I like to figure out the reasons, figure out the paths, skills, and divine arts used, and also the basic runes. Yudu's divine arts and the law of the great Tao all lie in Yudu's writing. You only know how to use, but don't know the reason why. He walked forward, and his body grew taller and larger. He gave Qin Fengqing 2 arms to control, while he controlled the other 4 arms. He stretched his 4 arms out, as though he was trying to hug heaven and earth. He said with a smile, Big brother, take a look at the Yudu's divine arts I've comprehended. On the most primitive land under earth Count's feet, the thickest and darkest devil chi poured forward to him furiously. Flashes of lightning and peals of thunder could be seen and heard from the moving darkness. Die. An angry roar that was like the rumble of thunder came from a camp on the opposite side, and the primordial spirits of countless gods instantly flooded out with weapons in their hands. Countless divine arts lit up Jade Lock Pass, and after the light from the divine arts, it was countless divine weapons that still preserved their powers even though they were broken. The big-headed baby became excited, and was about to make his move when Qin Mu turned around. The mouth of his first face opened up, and the mysterious Yudu god language came from his mouth. Whoosh! Countless gods that were sprinting over suddenly started to roll like snow-white ocean sprays. The things that were rolling on the ground were actually countless snow-white skeletons. These gods that were already dead had also moved their corpses to Yudu, and their primordial spirit would reside in the corpse. Yet at this moment, the bodies of countless gods were rotting at an astonishing speed. Because they were rushing, the skeletons just tumbled forward, and as a result, they formed a wave of white bones that stretched for several thousand miles. Qin Mu's other face turned around, and he took in a deep breath. The previous face was still chanting, and countless primordial spirits from the white skeletons came flying back. Countless divine arts, god weapons, and devil god weapons lost control and kept exploding in midair. The broken weapons flew and landed down in all directions. Those primordial spirits were in the tens of thousands, and they came pouring over without any control. Qin Mu turned around. Big brother, it's your turn. The big-headed baby was ineffably excited. He opened his mouth wide like a whale, and completely swallowed tens of thousands of primordial spirits from gods. Qin Mu turned around once again, and raised his palm. Countless god weapons and devil god weapons froze in the sky. He took a step forward, and the countless weapons in the sky also followed him to pressure the other side. Part 295. The Eye of Earth Count. Light was dim here, and in the eye, Celestial Venerable Yu finished the rest of the chicken. However, when he wanted to throw the bones away, he saw how clean this sacred hall was. He didn't know where he could throw them in this spotless place. He hesitated for a moment and saw no one in the hall. The Hellfire Earth Count and Elder Messenger of Death were both not around, and thus, he threw the chicken bones at the corner of the walls before scampering away. Outside the hall, the Earth Count formed from Hellfire stood there with Elder Messenger of Death, and they were currently looking down. Celestial Venerable Yu also looked down, but he could only see a piece of darkness. He couldn't see anything at all. Have you recorded everything down? Earth Count turned his head to ask. Elder Messenger of Death nodded his head and said, I'm recording. Outside Earth Count's eye, small boats were floating, and on every one of the tens of thousands of small boats, there was an Elder Messenger of Death. Lanterns were hung at the bow, and the messengers of death were all writing quickly. Celestial Venerable Mu is helping Earth Count, so do I still record down his mistakes? Elder Messenger of Death asked. Earth Count had no expression. Even though he is helping me, swallowing the primordial spirits of these gods is still a grave crime, we have no choice but to record them down. Elder Messenger of Death let out a troubled expression and sighed. There are too many small booklets about him, and those houses previously could no longer fit anymore. How could this stop at having enough books to fill a house to the rafters? I'm afraid we will have to construct a few halls to specially store his glorious achievements. Earth Count said, in that case, specially construct palaces to store his scrolls. Elder Messenger of Death acknowledged. In front of Jade Lock Pass, Yang Qianzhong coughed repeatedly. His face turned from pale to flush as he looked at the surging tide of divine weapons moving over. Those divine weapons were the weapons of the gods under him. Those tens of thousands of gods earlier were all his subordinates. He was Southern Heaven Red Deity in the extraterritorial celestial heavens during the High Emperor era, and these gods were his subordinates. He fought with Qi Xiaoyu of the High Emperor era, and he had died in battle. Countless subordinates of his had also died in battle, and after they died, they also fell into Yudu. They still continued to follow him. And today, they were all swallowed by that figure that was stepping over on countless skeletons. The surging tide of divine weapons gave off rays of sunlight, and they weaved around in mid-air as they moved forward continuously. They continuously pressured the sky to give off rumbles of thunder. Every divine weapon was like a mountain. The god light and devil light shone on each other, and suddenly, both lights united. God and devil collided, and in Yudu, the devil path suppressed the god path, so the power of the divine weapons was hard to be unleashed. However, terrifying power burst forth from these divine weapons. They were corrupted by the devil chi of Yudu. Under the shine of the god light and the devil light, the figure that was stepping on countless white bones walked over. He gave everyone an intense feeling of intimidation. It was a 3-headed and 6-armed human. The first head was a baby, and he was clapping his chubby hands in excitement. The eyes of another head gave off an incomparably feverish desire to fight, and seemed to be seething in anger at the upcoming battle. He was like a devil king, who could blow up any time, and start his massacre, while being controlled by the devil nature. Meanwhile, the third head seemed to be extremely calm and sacred. He surveyed the surroundings, and he was like a god that was high above. Yang Qianzhong was slightly puzzled. He seems to be slightly different from the previous son of Yudu. Hold yourself. Angry roars came from both sides of the camp. Those were the voices of the generals that were restraining the gods under them so they wouldn't get messed up. Now that Yang Qianzhong's subordinates got wiped out, he had opened up a gap. As long as Qin Mu went straight for Yang Qianzhong, both sides could pincer Qin Mu right in the middle. Yang Qianzhong snorted, and he felt rather unhappy. Seems like I've mobilized my troops too early. Right at this moment, Qin Mu suddenly stopped. On both sides were the army of gods amounting to millions. They shuddered as they looked at him, and their eyes were filled with fear. Under each military tent, existences on Numinous Sky Realm and Emperor's Throne Realm sat there without a word. Qin Mu's 3 heads surveyed the surroundings, and he revealed a smile. He could feel the waves of violent energy pouring over from Qin Fengqing, and after swallowing the primordial spirits of tens of thousands of gods, in that instant like a whale, his power rose, as the big baby digested so many gods. He couldn't help but like this kind of feeling. Luckily, Qin Fengqing could control the devil nature of Yudu, and didn't let the devil nature corrupt him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to control himself, and would have swallowed all the gods here. Qin Fengqing didn't trace back to the roots of a divine art. He couldn't, or in other words, was too lazy to comprehend divine arts, so he just used them. However, he was different. Since he had followed village chief, Granny Sai, Old Ma, and the rest to cultivate, when he was a child, he was also influenced by their spirit on questioning everything. He liked to study. If he were to commit evil, he would definitely be 100 times more terrifying than Qin Fengqing. You guys. He surveyed the surroundings, and he looked at the terrified army of gods. Even though they had 100 camps, millions of gods and countless Yudu monsters, they were all trembling as they faced one person. They couldn't even hold their weapons properly. You guys are not giving way and not escaping, are you waiting for me to? Both of Qin Mu's heads suddenly expanded and became a huge Mount Meru. He opened his huge mouth, and one mouth was equivalent to half of the sky. He roared towards the army of gods and devils. Eat you. His body was originally incomparably gigantic and sturdy. Now, his head was 100 times bigger than his body. The top of his head was truly holding up the sky while his chin was poking the ground. It was an extremely terrifying sight. Qin Fengqing's reaction was a step slower. When he saw the situation, he hurriedly swayed his head as well. His head was even larger than both of Qin Mu's heads, and he swung his fists around. Eat you. 3 roars raised cold winds that surged forth in all directions. The voice collided on the black-colored city walls, and the big city rumbled from the sound waves. On the ground were rolling sand and rocks which surged forth with the black wind, rushing into all the battle formations and camps. The bone-chilling cold wind caused the tattered armor and broken weapons on the gods to rattle. Soon, they were all covered in a layer of frost. In front of the formations, a one-eyed god swallowed his saliva with difficulty. However, because he was a ghost god, he didn't have any saliva in his mouth. Run! A green imp king suddenly turned and ran, leaving behind a trail of lush green will-o'-the-wisp. The other Yudu devil gods and the primordial spirits of gods didn't move. Suddenly, something rattled. The armor of a 4-armed god got shattered by the sound waves and fell to the ground. This voice seemed extremely piercing in the battle formations after the strong wind passed. That devil god carefully stabbed the military flag of his army on the ground, and he bent down to pick up his shattered armor. However, he accidentally bumped onto the flagpole. The huge flag collapsed onto the ground. The tattered flag laid on the ground. This flag can't fall. Just as he thought of holding the flag back up, sounds of flood rang beside his ears. Countless gods were escaping back, and countless people were shouting. The flag has fallen, we have lost, run. That 4-armed god was in a daze. Just as he was thinking of raising the flag back up, he got further and further away from the flag on the ground. I'm done for. He exclaimed to himself. Even if I find the flag, I can't stabilize the heart of the army anymore. I should flee. And thus he turned and ran. Yang Qianzhong looked at the primordial spirits of the gods that were running away and sneered. At this moment, Yang Joshi, Great Sun Sovereign, and the rest of the ancient gods couldn't sit still any longer. They got up and tried to stop the soldiers that were escaping, but the heart of the army was already scattered, so how could they stop them? The army deserters ran across the mountains and plains, and they poured towards the surface of Earth Count's feet like a flood. They quickly climbed up his legs. Cries could be heard everywhere, and countless people were screaming. Little Overlord is eating people again. In the eye of Earth Count, Hellfire Earth Count was astonished, and he said, "It looks like you don't have to record too much. Just 2 halls should be enough, they might not even be filled." Elder Messenger of Death shook his head and said with a sigh, "These guys remaining are the true big shots. Even though I don't have to record as much, this sin will be massive." After a long time, only then was the chaos gradually quelled. The big-headed baby looked forward and saw only 1,000 gods still standing there without running away. He was stunned. He looked left and looked right before asking Qin Mu, "Brother, they have all escaped, what do we eat now?" When his voice rang out, more commotion was heard as several hundred gods couldn't suppress the fear in their hearts, and they ran. Qin Fengqing ground his teeth and wanted to chase them very much. However, it was Qin controlling the body now, so he couldn't act on his own. No matter how many small fish we eat, it can never be compared to eating a big fish. Mu's gaze fell onto the gigantic bodies of the remaining 100 gods. He said with a smile, "Brother, now what we are going to eat are these big fish." Qin Fengqing became excited and asked with a smile, "Then why aren't we moving?" Mu leaped up, and the god weapons and devil god weapons in mid-air instantly melted as he soared into the sky. They transformed into a surging current, and this current formed a huge sword that was flowing in flames. He grabbed it in his hands. The instant he grabbed the huge sword, Yang Qianzhong, Yang Joshi, Great Sun Sovereign, and the rest burst forth with their divine arts. Jade Lock Pass was supposed to be the darkest place in Yudu and the place with the densest devil chi, but at this moment, it was like the sky suddenly had several thousand more suns. The flames and rays of divine arts stretched for 10,000 miles, and they came flooding from all directions to bombard Qin Mu, who was in midair. Yang Joshi roared, and his body swelled to rush forward. His arms flailed, and the black swords in his hands flew out to stab at Qin Mu. Great Sun Sovereign flapped his wings and transformed into a golden crow of darkness. Dark suns of all sizes spun and bombarded Qin Mu. Yang Qianzhong leaped furiously and transformed into a flame god. The wheels of flames behind his head swirled and countless divine arts burst forth from the wheels of light. At the same time, all kinds of divine arts from the other primordial spirits on Numinous Sky Realm and Emperor's Throne Realm covered the entire sky, lighting up the darkest place in Yudu. Even inside Jade Lock Pass was a place of snow white. To be able to cultivate to their extent, they were mostly existences that had entered the path. When their divine arts burst forth, they were immediately great divine arts that had the power to shake the world. Goddess Wuji was the fiercest, and her martial path divine arts were astonishing. Her fist skills were fierce and overbearing, while her speed was extremely fast. With a war cry, she rushed to Qin Mu's face, and countless after-images of fists, palms, and fingers came smashing at Qin Mu from all directions. Right at this moment, Qin Fengqing was incomparably excited. He was about to fight, when he realized he was holding the scarlet red sword. He was confused. Strange, why am I holding this sword? I don't know any sword skills. Just as he thought until here, Goddess Wuji had already rushed to his face. Return of 1,000 palms beyond the strange peaks of heavens. Qin Mu roared, and countless corporeal body divine arts transformed into a simple punch. This punch seemed to have 1,000 strange peaks smashing over suddenly, as they flew towards Goddess Wuji. Your martial path is too weak. Countless punches from Goddess Wuji landed on Qin Mu's body. With her hands welcoming Qin Mu's fist, her face suddenly transformed drastically. Her arms bent and started to snap. Her legs whirled as she kicked Qin Mu's body repeatedly. Sword come. Qin Mu stretched his hand to snatch the sword from Qin Fengqing's hand. With a swing, Goddess Wuji's head was separated from her body. Boom. Thousands of divine arts arrived and drowned them. The terrifying divine arts exploded, and snow-white light swept out in all directions. They flattened the land and rushed into the sky, coming to Earth Count's waist. Only then did the waves raised by the white light slowly disperse. And in the center of the explosion, Chinmu landed on the ground with a half squat. His corporeal body was tattered, and even his 3 heads and 6 arms were damaged badly. Waves of qi and blood flowed through his body and came out of his body. Qin Mu held onto the huge sword with ineffable excitement. "I am so strong." His corporeal body recovered at a rapid speed, which the naked eye could see. He burst forth with strength and leaped into the sky. He rushed at the half-god Yang Jiushi and laughed loudly. "So strong." Qin Fengqing, who was trying his best to digest Goddess Wuji, rolled his eyes when he heard him. "Country bumpkin. Country bumpkin." Yang Jiushi saw Qin Mu rushing to his face and he laughed loudly. "Son of Yudu, you are really a country bumpkin. To actually dare to fight head-to-head with me. Looks like you haven't suffered enough. You don't know how powerful Mother Earth's bloodline is." Qin Fengqing said in a hurry, "Brother, this short one is very powerful. His divine arts are very strange, and he uses 2 good swords, which are terrifying heavy. He caused me quite some pain." Yang Jiushi's body gave off divine rays of magnetism, and suddenly the divine might of magnetism burst forth. When Qin Mu rushed over, he suddenly felt as though countless planets were pressing down on his body, causing his corporeal body to instantly be incomparably heavy. Yang Jiushi's divine rays of magnetism instantly transformed into 2 divine swords that he gripped on his hands. He slashed at Qin Mu's 3 heads and 6 arms while smiling. "You can't do anything, can you? Mother Earth is my mother and I've inherited her bloodline. During my robust years, who dares to fight me? Magnetism divine arts." Qin Mu raised up one hand with difficulty, and his arm was incomparably heavy. He almost couldn't lift it up at all. Yang Jiushi's sword light had already come to his face. Qin Mu roared and his palm force burst forth. Countless prisms of heavenly fire poured out furiously and started to crack open. In an instantly, heavenly fire with the shape of prism were everywhere in the radius of several thousand miles. Yang Jiushi's magnetism divine swords stabbed through the prisms of heavenly fire, and at this moment, Great Sun Sovereign's shouts rang out. "Crown Prince Jiushi, don't touch those prisms. Move back quickly." But it was already too late. When Yang Jiushi's magnetism divine sword stabbed through the first heavenly fire prism, the power of the heavenly fire has already burst forth. Blazing flames smelted the magnetism divine swords and the terrifying explosion ignited the other prisms in the surroundings, which in turn ignited even more heavenly fire. Boom, boom, boom. Nearly all of the heavenly fire prisms had exploded at the same time, with Yang Jiushi being at the center of the explosion. Space was shattered into pieces at this very moment, and the terrifying heavenly fire invaded into the depths of space. The sky and land were melted, revealed layers of space that kept on burning. The ground trembled as a huge fireball slowly rose from the sky to incinerate everything. Even the Yudu Devil Chi and the land under Earth Count's feet also got burned through. The fireball expanded and vaporized everything it passed by, leaving only a series of empty holes. Around the empty holes were the layers of space that was ignited. That was the power of Heaven Duke. Heaven Duke, Mother Earth, Earth Count. They all controlled different powers, and they were the most ancient existences. Qin Mu used the Great Tao of Heavenly Fire to break Yang Jiushi's Great Tao of Magnetism. However, Yang Jiushi didn't have an undeserved reputation. He actually used countless rays of magnetism to protect his body. The explosion had broken through countless layers of his divine rays, but it couldn't hurt his origin. The surging heavenly fire surrounded him, and even the divine rays continued to melt in the heavenly fire. It was hard for the rays to be of any threat. In the flames, Qin Mu wielded the sword in one hand and he stabbed out. The sword light broke through the divine rays of magnetism, and gave a clink as it hit the heart of Yang Jiushi's brows. Countless runes swirled around the heart of Yang Jiushi's brows and blocked this sword. His magnetism runes broke under the power of the sword light, and the sword light pierced into the heart of his brows, advancing forward with difficulty. Yang Jiushi retreated and the heavenly fire came burning. His primordial spirit got ignited. Yang Jiushi roared angrily as his green smoke came out from his burned body. Screeches suddenly came from the sky as Great Sun Sovereign flew through the heavenly fire to grab at Qin Mu. Qin Mu's corporeal body shrunk rapidly, and he regained his normal body size. Great Sun Sovereign grabbed nothing, and he hurriedly flapped his wings to transformed back into a god with the head of a bird and the body of a human. He grew 3 bird legs and have wings that were like divine knives. As he spun, he used his wings, claws, beak and all kinds of methods to attack Qin Mu furiously. He witnessed the power of the heavenly fire, and he knew that he couldn't beat Qin Mu in the art of flames, so he decided not to divine art at all. Instead, he went for close combat. Even though he was dead, his primordial spirit was still extremely powerful. He was a famous ancient god back in Dragon Han era, and in terms of close combat, he was rarely afraid of others. His feathers were like swords, his wings were like knives, his claws were like hooks and his beak was like a spike. Every part of his body was a weapon, which could easily kill Qin Mu. Son of Yudu, I have never lost in close combat. Great Sun Sovereign looked as splendid as a rainbow, as he cried out, 1,000 feathers of Great Sun slashing profound theory. The countless feathers on his wings flew out, and they shuttled to and fro like swords to create bloody holes in Qin Mu's body. Great Sun Sovereign jolted his wings, and his 1,000 feathers returned to become 2 wings again. The 2 wings were like rapidly spinning blades as he slashed at Qin Mu. The injuries on Qin Mu's body quickly recovered, and his arms moved up and down to block down his attacks. He said with a smile, "You are bullshitting." Great Sun Sovereign's heart skipped a beat. When he heard the word bull, the indomitable figure of a bull-headed god subconsciously appeared in his mind. He had also lost before, but that was an incident that was very long ago. During the first year of Dragon Han, he was beaten by Golden Commander Niu Ben, who had only used his bare hands. That was an extraordinary shame and humiliation. Afterward, his attainments in Sun Divine Fire grew higher and higher. He was confident he had already surpassed Niu Ben, and wanted to take revenge. However, he could never find Niu Ben. Qin Mu freed his hands to fight him, but that sword in the heart of Yang Jiushi's brows was still there. Yang Jiushi was blazing with heavenly fire, and he moved back frantically. However, Qin Mu stuck close to him. Great Sun Sovereign's attacks became faster and faster, but he could never break into Qin Mu's ring of defense. Right at this moment, Yang Qianzhong braved the heavenly fire and entered the battle. Dragon Dance of Great Expansion. Countless fire dragons bared their fangs and brandished their claws around Yang Qianzhong, penetrating in and out of his body as though he was a devil god that had countless fire dragons growing on his body. No matter if it was his divine might or his divine art, they were all extremely terrifying. Great Sun Sovereign let out a sigh of relief. Yang Qianzhong was in existence on Emperor's throne before he died after all. He had astonishing attainments in fire divine art, and was an overlord in Yudu, so he wasn't afraid of the heavenly fire burning him. Great Sun Sovereign and Yang Qianzhong worked together to attack Qin Mu. Yang Qianzhong's body shrunk and became the same size as Qin Mu. Both of them attacked him furiously from his left and right, but Qin Mu could still block both of their attacks down. That sword was still planted in Yang Jiushi's forehead, and the sword light had already stabbed into Yang Jiushi's skull. The four of them moved their feet frantically, and all kinds of attacks gave off astonishingly loud rumbles. Suddenly, a melody from a flute came from the sky, and a god in clothing as white as snow came stepping on the heavenly fire with his bare foot. He descended down from the sky with his hands holding onto his jade flute, and his fingers moved quickly to play a calm melody. It's the disciple of Heaven Duke, Saint Huiyun of the celestial heavens. Yang Qianzhong was delighted, and he said with a smile, "Nice melody. Could this be heavenly fire burning divine melody?" Saint Huiyun played the jade flute, and heavenly fire burning divine melody was being played. The sound waves guided the heavenly fire, and actually used the heavenly fire to attack Qin Mu. Great Sun Sovereign said with a smile, "With the assistance of Saint Huiyun, we can even beat the son of Yudu." Saint Huiyun moved. As the four of them were sprinting, he circled around them in the heavenly fire, and the music of the flute flowed out melodiously. The sounds of nature came assaulting from all directions. As Saint Huiyun was playing loudly, the third eye on Qin Mu's forehead opened up and a beam of light shot out. It swept through Saint Huiyun's neck. Saint Huiyun was stunned and his head fell down. Qin Fengqing quickly stretched his hands out to grab the two halves of Saint Huiyun's primordial spirit. He stuffed into his mouth, only to give a burp of satisfaction. "Crap, I'm full." This big-headed baby was a little flustered. He had eaten Goddess Wuji earlier, and before he could even digest her, now he had eaten Saint Huiyun. Instantly, he felt his corporeal body swelling up and feeling full. There are still so many good dishes, what do I do? His thoughts were in turmoil. Outside the heavenly fire, the other 100 ancient existences were looking from far away, not daring to go in. The heavenly fire was too intense, and most of them were primordial spirits, without any corporeal bodies. The heavenly fire could cause severe harm to primordial spirits, therefore, this was also one of the reasons why a primordial spirit would fall into Yudu, and couldn't travel to Xuanju after they die. Heaven Duke's body was completely covered in heavenly fire, so the soul and primordial spirit couldn't withstand at all. Suddenly, the eyes of a strong practitioner on numinous sky realm lighted up, and he shouted, "They have fought out of the heavenly fire." The waves of fire surged and spewed several thousand miles out. It was Qin Mu, Great Sun Sovereign, and Yang Qianzhong's divine arts that were fire snakes slithering out. Next, their figures fought their way out of the heavenly fire. Numerous ancient existences hurriedly flew over only to see Qin Mu's sword light had pierced through Yang Jiushi's head and stabbed out from the back of his head. "Mine." Qin Mu's chubby head was delighted. He grabbed Yang Jiushi and opened his huge mouth to stuff Yang Jiushi in. Next, he gave several burps of satisfaction, and he was troubled. "I thought I can really eat, but it seems that I can't." "You dare." 100 strong practitioners on numinous sky and Emperor's throne came attacking, and they instantly felt there were too many people. This caused them to stumble and found it hard to execute their moves. There were only a few people that could attack Qin Mu at the same time, but with Qin Mu's 3 heads and 6 arms, he could block down all of the attacks from his surroundings. Furthermore, this son of Yudu also had thick skin that made him extremely resilient. Even when they attacked together, they could only injure him and not take his life. Qin Mu's footsteps moved quickly, and he executed all kinds of paths, skills and divine arts. When he encounters danger, he would just raise his hand and sent all of the close combatants 1,000 miles away. How is his magic power still so strong? Great Sun Sovereign was also injured, making him flustered and exasperated. Yang Qianzhong's roared angrily, in Yudu, his magic power is boundless. Suddenly, the third eyes on Qin Mu's 3 heads burst forth with beams of light, and the beams shot out in all directions. The beams of light swirled and sliced everything in their way. Everyone tried to dodge, but there was still quite a number of people who got severed into 2 halves. Their primordial spirits got severed, and it was different from corporeal bodies being severed. After their primordial spirits got severed, it was equivalent to their souls being slain, and their souls would disperse, leaving only their spirit embryos behind. Qin Fengqing stared with his eyes wide open, and he felt a pain in his heart. He hurriedly said with a soft voice, "Little brother, my good little brother, I really can't eat anymore. Fight slowly, don't beat them to death. Big brother, you are the big brother, stop killing." Qin Mu disregarded his words, and with his injured body, he executed raising calamity sword to slay several people. 2 of his heads had been severed and 4 arms were already broken. Flesh squirmed out from his shoulders as another 2 heads grew out with fiendish looks. Qin Fengqing's hands trembled and he grabbed the primordial spirits that were slain. He wanted to stuff them in his mouth, but he truly couldn't stuff them down any longer. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind and he said in delight, "I have an idea. I can store some food first." After saying so, he stuffed those broken primordial spirits into the heart of his brows. The clone of Heaven Duke and the consciousness of Crimson Emperor looked nervously at the situation of the battle outside. Suddenly, the sky split apart and broken limbs came falling from the sky. They soon accumulated on the ground. Both of them looked at each other in dismay. Right at this moment, Great Sun Sovereign got thrown in as well and he fell to the ground. This Star Sovereign was also a primordial spirit, and he actually wasn't dead yet. He immediately flapped his wings and planned to leave this place. Heaven Duke said with a good intention, "Little bird, you don't have to run. If we can't even escape, what makes you think you are able to? How did you get in?" Great Sun Sovereign was astonished, and only then did he notice these 2 people. He hurriedly greeted, "Heaven Duke. Heaven Duke, are you also being treated as food by the son of Yudu?" "Papa. Children's words carry no harm. Go knock on wood, knock on wood." Heaven Duke said with a smile, "How could I be treated as food? I'm here to enlighten this devil, so I've come here on my own initiative, preventing him from causing harm to all living things." "Why have you come in?" Great Sun Sovereign was ashamed and said, "Just now, I got stunned by son of Yudu, and that baby pinched onto my wings to pull me in. It is indeed righteous of Heaven Duke to want to prevent him from causing harm to all living things. However, why is he still able to start a massacre outside?" The white-beard elder blew onto his beard and stared with his eyes wide open. "Little bird, do you know how you died?" Great Sun Sovereign muttered, "My mouth has no seal and I know too many secrets, thus, I just died for some unknown reason." Heaven Duke snorted and said indifferently, "After you die, you still have primordial spirit. If you continue to spout nonsense, you might not even have your soul left." Great Sun Sovereign was meek and said, "In that case, will son of Yudu still eat me?" The clone of Heaven Duke laughed and said, "I've stayed here for too long. Even though son of Yudu is capable, as long as you follow me, he can forget about eating you." Great Sun Sovereign was overjoyed. Crimson Emperor couldn't resist saying, "Don't believe him." "I believed him and got beaten up God knows how many times." Great Sun Sovereign hurriedly asked, "And you are?" "Crimson Light Celestial Heavens, Crimson Emperor." Great Sun Sovereign was astonished. There were still countless arms dropping in from outside and suddenly, the sky turned dark. There was no more movement outside. "Lu Li and the rest have made a move." Great Sun Sovereign cried out, "Slaughter Cauldron and Heavenly Net has merged and trapped him. We are saved." The clone of Heaven Duke had a worried expression and he shook his head. "You are overthinking. This is bad. Slaughter Cauldron and Heavenly Net would only refine us to death along with the people in the cauldron. Lu Li is trying to become the second Earth Count. Part 296. Qin Mu was enjoying the massacre when Lu Li suddenly raised a squarish cauldron from far away. Even though the cauldron was squarish, there was a circular marking under the squarish lid which imprinted the stars of the worlds. It represented the heaven plate. The four sides of the cauldron were imprinted with four devil gods that had the head of a bull, the face of a tiger, and the body of a human. They bit on the heaven plate, and that represented Yudu. Lu Li raised the lid of the cauldron high up and instantly, a ray of snow-white light shone and landed on Qin Mu's body. Qin Mu instantly knew it was bad, and suddenly, the world started spinning. His body flew up involuntarily, and he was grabbed along with the other gods, flying towards the cauldron lid that was in Lu Li's hands. The other three gods that got grabbed by that light became flustered, and they cried out, "God suppression Heavenly Net." Qin Mu's heart trembled violently. He was about to escape, when the sky suddenly turned dark. He raised his head to look, and it was full of stars. Lu Li grabbed the cauldron lid and capped it on the slaughter cauldron that Earth Count's reincarnation had refined. She capped it tightly until it was airtight. Lu Li let out a sigh of relief and cried out, "Aren't you guys coming to help?" Xianming, Han Lei, and Zhu Huang immediately struck their palms onto the slaughter cauldron. Lu Li also made her move, and the four palms on four sides activated the power of the slaughter cauldron and Heavenly Net. Suddenly, the Yudu big shots descended, and Yang Qianzhong took a step forward. "You cannot execute the slaughter cauldron. There are still 3 Dao friends that had been pulled into the cauldron as well. If you activate the slaughter cauldron, they would also be refined to death." Lu Li took a glance at him and said with a smile, "In that case, open the lid and release Yudu Little Overlord. Red Deity shall personally smack him back in." Yang Qianzhong snorted and didn't say another word. "Release Son of Yudu, and we are all going to die." Xianming said insipidly, "Everyone here is a senior, and you don't have corporeal bodies, you are naturally restrained by Son of Yudu. Now that Son of Yudu has made a comeback, he is different from what he was 22 years ago. He has mended all of his shortcomings, and his divine arts today are extraordinary. Furthermore, he is in Yudu, so he can't be beaten to death. The only thing that can kill him is the Heavenly Net and Slaughter Cauldron." Everyone fell silent. Son of Yudu's power and terror was something that they had all comprehended. Furthermore, they had experienced it twice. The first time was 2 months after he was born. Back then, Son of Yudu had created quite the trouble and swallowed God knows how many gods from the various factions. He grew bigger and bigger while becoming more and more arrogant. However, even though Son of Yudu was strong then, he wasn't invincible. He didn't know any paths, skills, or divine arts. He had only relied on himself being the first life that was born from the womb in Yudu. By staying in Yudu, he could recover anytime, and he could absorb other people's souls and primordial spirits to strengthen himself. Only then did he manage to secure his life. And 22 years later, Son of Yudu returned back to Yudu once again, and the power he had displayed was completely different. In the battle just now, there were great casualties among the 100-strong practitioners on Numinous Sky and Emperor's throne. More than half had died in his hands. Numerous strong practitioners on Numinous Sky and Emperor's throne didn't have corporeal bodies, and were only left with primordial spirits. Their abilities would be reduced greatly, and they would be equivalent to gods on Jade Capital Realm and Numinous Sky Realm. However, their knowledge and horizons from when they were alive were still around, so they were much stronger than gods on Jade Capital Realm. With so many strong practitioners ganging up on him, and them still having that many casualties, it truly made them tremble in fear. Lu Li's attack caught Son of Yudu off guard, and kept him into the cauldron. If they opened up the slaughter cauldron, it would be far more difficult to seal him back in. Who knew how many more ancient existences would have to die? For these 3 Tao friends to sacrifice their lives to get rid of the son of Yudu, the righteous are as high as the sky, and I admire them very much. Suddenly, Heavenly King Gao had a look of sorrow on his face and placed his palm on slaughter cauldron. He teared up and said, "For 3 Tao friends to be so righteous, let me cry for 3 Tao friends from the bottom of my heart, and send them off." The other ancient existences had terrible expressions, and they choked on their tears. To send 3 Tao friends off. Everyone was crying. Lu Li looked at them with a smile, and she suddenly laughed. All right, there's no need for everyone to be so sorrowful. This son of Yudu didn't die immediately after landing in the cauldron. For those 3 Tao friends to not suffer, let us quickly execute the slaughter cauldron and send all of them on their way. Everyone had dark faces. Yang Qianzhong said coldly, "Provincial Governor Lu Li, your desire for credit is too much. 3 Tao friends have died because of you, and yet you can still smile." Lu Li bawled, and her tears streaked down like rain. She wiped her tears and said, "Other people may think I'm doing this for credit, but who knows, I'm forcing myself to smile." Xian Ming couldn't look at her any longer, and just said gently, "Important matters first. Settle the important matter at hand." Heavenly King Gao raised his eyebrows and said, "After we refine son of Yudu to death, who will his corporeal body belong to?" Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Heavenly King Gao chuckled and said, "For provincial governors, the heavenly net was made by our combined effort to deal with son of Yudu. Now that so many Tao friends have died, we might be sad, but the corporeal body of the son of Yudu is no small matter. We should discuss who this corporeal body belongs to beforehand." Lu Li frowned, and she asked with a smile, "Heavenly King Gao, what opinions do you have? Why don't you make yourself clear?" Heavenly King Gao chuckled. "We are merely dead people, what opinions could we have?" Yang Qianzhong's heart stirred slightly and said, "For provincial governors all have corporeal bodies, but we old things don't. After son of Yudu is refined to death, his corporeal body is naturally ours. 4 provincial governors should give it to us, your predecessors." Zhu Huang sneered and said, "There are so many ghosts and only one son of Yudu, so how are you guys going to split him? Since the corporeal body of son of Yudu won't belong to us, why doesn't everyone decide who it belongs to now?" All of the ancient existences were apprehensive. The corporeal body of the son of Yudu was simply too attractive. When they thought of how they could control Earth Count's abilities when they revive, replacing Earth Count would only be a matter of time if they continued to grow. The surroundings of the slaughter cauldron was quiet as all of the ancient existences became silent. Lu Li sneered endlessly in her heart. The other 3 provincial governors stood beside her and examined the faces of these ancient existences, putting up their guards. In the cauldron, Qin Mu and those 3 primordial spirits on Numinous Sky Realm had fallen into the cauldron at the same time. The light of the heavenly net dispersed. The surroundings were in darkness. Qin Mu raised his head to look, and he saw the radiant stars and a galaxy above their heads. When he looked down, there was incomparable darkness. Floating in the darkness were faces, and there were human faces, as well as god faces. The faces seemed to be forged by the thinnest paper, and they just floated in the darkness without any thickness, appearing from time to time. Those were the strong practitioners that had died in the slaughter cauldron, and after they got refined by the slaughter cauldron, they turned into imprints inside the cauldron to add to the power of the huge cauldron. The heavenly net. One of the primordial spirits gave off a look of despair, and cried out with a miserable voice, "The heavenly net we made personally, has been used by that little bastard Lu Li on us. There's also the slaughter cauldron." The primordial spirits of the other 2 ancient existences also revealed intense fear, and their voices were coarse. The slaughter cauldron that was being refined by Earth Count's reincarnation, the number one treasure in Yudu, the number one treasure for slaughter. Back then, when Earth Count started a massacre, during the Dragon Han era, he used this cauldron and refined so many souls of ancient gods and half-gods into dust. We are done for. Let us out. The three primordial spirits rushed into the sky and flew towards the galaxy. Qin Mu raised his head and saw the stars and the galaxy operating, and when the three primordial spirits on numinous sky realm rushed into the galaxy, they got smacked down and landed in the darkness. They exploded in the darkness, and their light gradually extinguished. What a pity I couldn't eat them, the big baby said regretfully. Qin Mu examined his surroundings with a grave expression. Back then, he had seen the faces of the three ancient existences appearing in the darkness, and becoming another three imprints. Those people that got refined to death here were extremely strong. Under the power of the slaughter cauldron, they were killed before they could even resist. Back then, Earth Count had massacred countless people, because of the death of his wife and daughter. He was controlled by his devil nature, and as a result, he created this number one treasure of slaughter in Yudu. His grudges and his devil nature had reached the extreme limits in that instant, reaching the extent that broke free of the control of Yudu's rules. At that time, the slaughter cauldron was formed with his strongest devil nature and grievances, so one could imagine how terrifying this cauldron was. Now, this cauldron still hasn't attacked us. Qin Mu looked at the faces floating around and felt apprehensive. Is Earth Count controlling this cauldron? That's not right. After Earth Count started a massacre in the Dragon Han era, he felt heavy guilt and locked his reincarnation in Jade Lock Pass to suffer the hellfire. This cauldron must have been abandoned by him, or taken by the celestial heavens, who gave it to Provincial Governor Lu Li to control. That also means the strongest power of this cauldron hasn't been activated. There must be no one outside activating it. He composed himself, and when the three primordial spirits got smacked down by the heavenly net, it activated the power of the slaughter cauldron and killed them directly. This meant that the power of the slaughter cauldron could be activated, but as long as it wasn't activated, there wouldn't be much of a problem. Unless Lu Li and the rest just activate the power of the huge cauldron directly. For Earth Count to refine the slaughter cauldron in the Dragon Han era, his attainments in algebra must not be high at all. Qin Mu maintained his composure, and the eye in the heart of his brows opened up to look in the surroundings. He thought to himself, at that time, Tao Master should only have created computational canon of Mysterious Lady and computation canon of Supreme Mystery. Earth Count probably hadn't learned it either. In that case, this slaughter cauldron would have a flaw in its killing formation. He looked around and scrunched his brows tighter and tighter. Beads of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He couldn't see any flaws. At this moment, he thought of something crucial. That was that the algebra of the Tao sect was used to expound the great Tao of heaven and earth. On the other hand, Earth Count was a natural-born ancient god. He was the embodiment of the great Tao of Yudu. He had no need for algebra. Algebra was lowly attainment to him. Giving up his own paths, skills, and achievements to research algebra was simply buying a wooden box and returning the pearls inside. This is bad. Just as he thought until here, Qin Fengqing on his right suddenly sucked in deep breaths and praised, "This is truly a good place. There's a nice smell everywhere, how fragrant." Qin Mu blinked his eyes. How fragrant? Qin Fengqing nodded his head. How fragrant? Don't you smell the fragrance in the air? That is the smell of the souls that are filled with pain, terror, despair, grievances, regrets, and all kinds of lethal thoughts. The smell is especially nice. Qin Mu was stunned. Suddenly, a divine art bombarded the darkness. There was a loud rumble, and the darkness flowed, but there was no retaliation from the slaughter cauldron like he had expected. The slaughter cauldron didn't have any reaction to his attack. Only a face revealed a pained look in the darkness, and opened his mouth to give off a silent cry. Qin Mu was stunned, and he suddenly came to a realization. He cried out, "I know why now. We brothers are Earth Count, to this cauldron, we are the same as it. It won't attack Earth Count, or attack itself." He was instantly excited. He moved around and still didn't receive any attack from the slaughter cauldron. Qin Mu flew to the front of a face, and the eyes of that huge face rolled, looking at him with an expression of fear. Qin Mu moved to the side of the face and still saw this face. No matter what angle he looked at it from, he could only see the front of the face. He could never see the sides or the back. He couldn't help clicking his tongue in wonder. "Big brother, can you see what paths, skills, and divine arts this cauldron uses? How did Earth Count create this face? Give me a moment." Qin Fengqing raised his hand and stretched his arm into the eye in the heart of his brows. He grabbed around messily, and in Qin word land, Heaven Duke, Crimson Emperor, and Great Sun Sovereign hurriedly dodged here and there. After a moment, Qin Fengqing took a head out from Qin word land. He blew a breath of air, and that head flew up to float in the darkness. Just like this. Qin Mu was stunned and circled a few times around that head. All four sides of the head were the front of the face, and he couldn't see the sides or the back. What paths, skills, and divine arts are being used in this? Qin Mu was at a loss. "I have no idea." Qin Fengqing said, "Since there's no danger, let me digest first. You can think of a way out." Qin Mu called out a few times, but Qin Fengqing never replied. This big baby had actually fallen asleep at this important moment, and he even stuffed a big thumb in his mouth. Qin Mu pulled his thumb out from his mouth and wiped it on his body. Qin Fengqing was sucking on his thumb. Among his 3 heads and 6 arms, 1 head and 2 arms were controlled by Qin Fengqing, while the other 2 heads and 4 arms were controlled by Qin Mu. During the battle, Qin Mu would even control all 6 arms. When Qin Fengqing had fallen asleep, he had taken his hand and put Qin Mu's thumb into his mouth. There was nothing in his mouth, so Qin Fengqing couldn't sleep well. He smacked his lips and mumbled to himself. Qin Mu raised Qin Fengqing's left hand and stuck his thumb into his mouth. Only then did he calm down. "Is he my older brother, or am I the older brother?" Qin Mu shook his head and wandered around in the slaughter cauldron, trying to find a way out. However, no matter how much he flew, he could never find the borders. Even though the slaughter cauldron didn't look huge, the space inside seemed to be endless. He couldn't find any end. Qin Mu executed his teleportation divine art, and still couldn't escape from this cauldron. After a long time, he finally gave up on searching for the borders. Instead, he flew up. The slaughter cauldron was made by Earth Count, and Earth Count was remarkable. Even though Qin Fengqing's abilities were great, he was still a long distance away from Earth Count, which made leaving from the heavenly net the best shortcut. He came to the sky, and before he could even get close, he saw countless starlight flowing. The galaxy changed and soared like a dragon towards him. Qin Mu raised his hand to block, and his magic power transformed into a barrier. That galaxy instantly clashed onto that barrier. The stars in the galaxy didn't have physical forms, and instead, they were strange imprints. They collided furiously against one another, and at first, it was only a dozen stars, and that didn't have much power. However, in the blink of an eye, countless stars poured out like the sea, and the barrier that Qin Mu had created lit up continuously. In an instant, it turned into an incomparably bright barrier of light. Boom! Violent tremors came over, and the barrier from his magic power crumbled. The galaxy bombarded his body, and threw him down from the sky. In just a short while, countless stars collided on his corporeal body, and intense pain swept through his body. Qin Mu defended against the attacks and gave a shout. Grand Yudu devil language came from his mouth. Where I am, it's Yudu. The devil chi at the bottom of Slaughter Cauldron swelled up, and formed a land of darkness under his feet. Next, Yudu devil chi rushed into the sky and bombarded towards the galaxy in the sky. Qin Mu realized he could actually mobilize the power of Slaughter Cauldron, and he was astonished and delighted. The galaxy that was rushing at him was dispersed by the Yudu devil chi. He stepped on the land of Yudu, and grew taller and taller, reaching straight into the galaxy. The galaxy shook, and it became more and more intense. Suddenly, the starlight of countless stars linked together and transformed into a dense net of starlight. It descended down from the sky and sliced apart the Yudu devil chi as it traveled down. Qin Mu was astonished. He mobilized the Yudu devil chi, and the berserk devil chi transformed into a long knife in his hand as he slashed at the net of starlight. Every cloud has a silver lining. With a vertical and a horizontal knife light, the net of starlight was torn apart. Qin Mu sucked in deep breaths, and his corporeal body grew until he became a giant that was 30,000 yards tall. His forearms struck furiously into the air, and in an instant, countless fists crumbled the galaxy. Outside the cauldron, Yang Qianzhong, Heavenly King Gao, and the rest of the ancient existences were still in a deadlock. No one was willing to give up this chance, and suddenly, the Slaughter Cauldron vibrated violently. The cauldron lid gave off loud clanks, and the huge cauldron began to sway left and right. It was as if there was a behemoth being suppressed inside, which could break out of the cauldron anytime. Everyone was astonished, and Lu Li hurriedly said, "Everyone here is a senior, this is no time to throw a tantrum. Let us first refine Son of Yudu to death, before making a decision." Shi, Xianming, Zhu Huang, and Han Lei immediately went up, and they pressed their palms on the four corners of the heavenly net. They activated the power of the heavenly net. Okay. Yang Qianzhong went forward, and behind him was layers and layers of flame wheels that were swirling furiously. The magic power of his primordial spirit instantly shot out like a beam and hit the Slaughter Cauldron. He shouted, "Let us refine Son of Yudu to death first." Heavenly King Gao saw this situation, and stretched out his fingers to gently brush against the heart of his brows, revealing a jade green eye. A beam of light also shot out and landed on the Slaughter Cauldron. He said with a smile, "Oh well, as for who the corporeal body of the Son of Yudu belongs to, we can discuss that after his dead." Some of the other ancient existences either stretched out their palms, or opened their mouths to spew out their magic power. Vast celestial palaces appeared behind them, and with all kinds of methods, they poured their magic power into the Slaughter Cauldron and heavenly net, activating the power of these two important treasures. "Knock him down from the heavenly net first." Lu Li shouted, "Let the Slaughter Cauldron refine him to death." Qin Mu had already fought his way up to the top of the galaxy, and the land of Yudu under his feet grew at a rapid speed. Just as he was about to break free, the galaxy suddenly spun, and its power increased tremendously. At the same time, 4 heads of earth count actually appear around him, and they opened their mouths wide to bite down on the land of Yudu. In the sky above, the galaxy transformed into an inescapable net as the starlight chained together. The net of starlight came slicing down, and its power was more than a dozen times stronger than before. I can't fight it with brute force. The land of Yudu got suppressed by the 4 heads of earth count. Just as Qin Mu was about to avoid it using his teleportation divine art, he suddenly felt boundless power pouring over to him from the Slaughter Cauldron. In an instant, power filled his entire body, and he was surprised and delighted. Originally, I couldn't mobilize power from the Slaughter Cauldron, so how can I mobilize so much now? He didn't know it was Heavenly King Gao, Yang Qianzhong, and the rest that were activating the Slaughter Cauldron. They didn't know that activating the Slaughter Cauldron would only allow Qin Mu to mobilize even more power of Yudu. Qin Mu's aura trembled violently, and he gave a roar as he tore apart the chains of starlight. Breaking through the net of starlight, he rushed up only to see the galaxy swirling and pressing down on him. Qin Mu punched and kicked to shake the galaxy, and at the same time, the 4 heads of Earth count couldn't suppress the land of Yudu. The land of Yudu brought Qin Mu higher and higher. Outside the cauldron, Lu Li and the rest were feeling numb in their arms from the vibrations. They were astonished and terrified. Qin Mu was simply so overbearing in the cauldron that even the slaughter cauldron and heavenly net couldn't suppress him. If this continued, he would probably blow the heavenly net off and break free. Isn't the slaughter cauldron the #1 treasure of slaughter in Yudu? Why isn't he being refined to death? Everyone was flustered, and they poured out even more magic power to activate the slaughter cauldron and heavenly net. Lu Li hurriedly shouted, "Let us completely activate the power of the heavenly net first and push him to the bottom of the cauldron." Instantly, all of the ancient existences stopped activating the slaughter cauldron and poured their magic power into the heavenly net. The power of the heavenly net instantly increased tremendously, and a loud explosion was heard from the cauldron. Everyone instantly felt their pressure lessening. However, they still felt a lingering fear in their hearts and didn't know what the situation in the cauldron was. Could Son of Yudu be killed by the heavenly net? Yang Qianzhong asked with a low voice. In the cauldron, Qin Mu stood on the land of Yudu as starlight came shooting out from the galaxy swirling in the sky. Nets of starlight came slicing down one after another as the light sparkled, forcing him to furiously attack to be able to block the slicing nets. The power of the heavenly net got pushed to its extremes, and the galaxy surged forward to suddenly transform into a huge palm print that came pressing down. Qin Mu raised his forearms high up to catch this gigantic galaxy hand, and his body sank down continuously from the pressure. Right at this moment, the third eyes on the 4 heads of Earth count opened up, and 4 beams of light came slicing down. The land under Qin Mu's feet was sliced into chunks and broke off. That galaxy hand smacked down ruthlessly at Qin Mu, and Qin Mu was pressed down in the bottom of the palm. Sounds of wind rang out beside his ears, and the sounds overlapped into one. The devil chi got pressed down until it was thick like a wall, forming a land which squashed him in the center. Boom! The power of this galaxy hand burst forth, and the palm force struck straight to the bottom of the cauldron. The huge cauldron trembled violently. Qin Mu's bones and tendons were broken, his neck was snapped, his arms were cracked, and his legs were twisted. He sprawled out on the ground in a peculiar pose. On the other hand, Qin Fengqing was still sucking on his thumb and sleeping soundly. Qin Mu took the initiative to fight against the power of the galaxy hand and assisted him with all his power. Only then was Qin Fengqing not injured, and instead, he was the one full of injuries. That galaxy hand dispersed, and the starlight flowed up continuously like a tornado. They quickly vanished. This was the first time Qin Mu had been beaten up so miserably. He laid there without moving, and the magic power in his body was completely in disorder. His primordial spirit was also severely injured. Right at this moment, the power of Slaughter Cauldron suddenly raised explosively, and the Yudu Devil Chi surged over. The Devil Chi quickly filled his entire body. Qin Mu was surprised and delighted. Who is treating my injuries? Is it Earth Count? He doesn't seem like such a nice person. His magic power was instantly refilled, and he hurriedly executed creation technique to treat his own injuries. With the power of the Slaughter Cauldron becoming stronger and stronger, more and more magic power came flowing towards him. Qin Mu's injuries quickly recovered, and the power of the Slaughter Cauldron was still increasing furiously. Something is wrong. Qin Mu's corporeal body swelled up from the violent devil chi, and his body grew larger and larger. He couldn't help feeling flustered and hurriedly called out, "Brother, brother, wake up. Has your digestion finished? I'm about to reach my limit. He was stuffed until he felt giddy, and his sight turned blurry. Suddenly, he heard an old voice saying with a laugh, "Ah Cho, don't be a busy bee, your wife has a big tummy, and you're still letting her do the chores. Aren't you going to help her?" Qin Mu's sight gradually became clearer, and he could see verdant hills and clear waters, hear the chirping of birds and smell the fragrant flowers. An old woman with white hair smiled and looked at him as she stood in front of a house with the support of a cane. Qin Mu was stunned. He heard his voice becoming rough and coarse. "Mother, I know, I'm going to help." Qin Mu was stunned. Only then did he notice he was plowing with an iron rake. He looked at the incomparably rough hands putting down the iron rake as he stood up. He was very tall, about 12 feet. Qin Mu was puzzled, and he looked down at his reflection on the ground. His mind was blown. The figure on the ground had bull horns on his head, and there was even the tail of a bull behind his buttocks. "That's not right, this isn't me." He felt he couldn't control his corporeal body as he started walking towards the house. In the manor, which wasn't too big, he could see a gentle and virtuous woman washing the clothes with a big tummy in difficulty. He hurriedly walked forward and tried to use a gentle voice to speak. "Dear, be careful of disturbing the fetus, let me do it." That woman tried her best to straighten her back, and he quickly helped the woman up while he sat down to wash the clothes. At this moment, Qin Mu saw his face in the water. He had the eyes of a tiger and tiger stripes on his face. On his head was a pair of bull horns with 9 bends. Even though he had the eyes of a tiger, his eyes were filled with gentleness. Earth Count. Qin Mu's mind was blank, and he only came back to his senses after a moment. Is this the memory of the slaughter cauldron? Which also means I'm currently in the memory of Earth Count's slaughter cauldron. This slaughter cauldron already has a spirit. Earth Count had reincarnated in an era very long ago, and when Left Soul Guardian mentioned this incident, he had even said that Earth Count was too ugly and wasn't welcomed by the people. Afterward, some ancient gods and half-gods schemed against him and killed his wife and daughter. As a result, Earth Count's devil nature lost control, and he killed countless terrifying existences. The memory of the slaughter cauldron was probably this incident. Qin Mu felt as though he had transformed into Earth Count, and he was reliving that memory. Earth Count was very gentle, and even though he was a brute, he was extremely nice to his wife. She was a very virtuous woman that was very filial to her elders. The old woman was Earth Count's mother, and she was pregnant for several years and didn't give birth. When she finally gave birth to Earth Count, crows filled the sky outside her window, and when she took a look at her child was actually a monster with the face of a tiger and the horns of a bull. Everyone said he was the reincarnation of a devil king and wanted to kill him, but the old woman kept him. She gave him the pet name, Ah Cho. She raised him up painstakingly and allowed him to grow into an adult. When Earth Count became an adult, he displayed extraordinary strength and had remarkable divine arts. However, he missed home and couldn't bear to leave his old mother. However, while he might be ugly, there was still someone who fell in love with him, and that was his wife. Even an ugly person is wanted. The old woman was very happy, and she doted on her son and daughter-in-law very much. However, his wife didn't like to call him Ah Cho, and she liked to call him Brother Ah Nyo. This family was in bliss, and soon, his wife was pregnant. She gave birth to a boy and a girl. Earth Count cried from happiness, and he carried the 2 children happily and taught them how to cultivate. Their lives were very carefree. Even though Earth Count was ugly, he was more like a human now instead of that impartial ancient god in Yudu. His reputation was very huge, but he was always very content with his lot and never created grudges with anyone. However, since disasters always happen in the surroundings, Earth Count always helped the needy for justice by saving the people around him. Gradually, everyone became nicer and nicer to him. I've heard the villagers of the neighboring village saying that there was a half-god appearing in the area recently. The wife coaxed the kid and said to him, "He ate quite some people, and he seemed to be asking around for your information." Earth Count gave a sound of acknowledgement, and when he raised his head, he saw that half-god his wife had mentioned. Arnyo. That half-god's body was as huge as a mountain, making their small manor look incomparably small. That half-god grabbed a few people in his hands and grinned at him, sending them into his mouth before using force to chew on them. He laughed and said, "Who would have thought the ruler of Yudu would actually reincarnate and marry a human woman? Earth Count, since you have reincarnated, hand over Yudu, you won't get to use it anyway." Earth Count didn't reply to him, and he looked behind him. More and more half-gods appeared, and they looked extremely powerful. The villages around had all been razed to the ground by these half-gods. Archo. His old mother walked out with a trembling body and asked, "What's wrong?" "It's fine." Qin Mu heard his muffled voice saying, "Mother, go back first. Everyone, you want to be the ruler of Yudu. Yudu is now empty, just go be the ruler of Yudu, why are you here to trouble me? If you aren't dead, we don't dare to." Those half-gods started laughing. "Brother Arnyo," his wife's voice came from his back. Qin Mu turned his head back, and saw a half-god transforming into a feathered snake to coil around his wife and grab his 2 children. Qin Mu's heart trembled, and he almost couldn't bear to see anymore. This video will end here.